Everybody's got a story. What's yours?
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 4 of Cool Story with David J. McNeil. Thank you so much for coming back to spend some of your precious time with us. This has been a lot of fun for me because we do exactly what I set out to do here. Have in-depth conversations with people that I know who have lived really unique, all-in, live-in-the-moment kind of lives. And my next guest, Johnny Hayes, is a true original. Johnny is a hustler. He always lands on his feet. His aim may have been misguided in the early days. In fact, during his high school days, he was involved in a business moving contraband product to a city in northern Canada. He was still high school age, but he was making sometimes upwards to $10,000 to $30,000 a day. It became so hard to conceal the amount of money that Johnny was bringing in that he decided to tell his mother it was income from a phone sex business he was running instead. And he was still in high school. But things went pear-shaped and he decided to go back to school, which turned out to be a good idea. And that's where my story and Johnny's begin to share the same road for a stretch. Johnny's curiosity and passion for new projects has taken him to some really interesting places. And on one dark night, it almost got him killed. We'll talk about that experience at length during this show. Johnny's talent has carried him a long way. Today, he tours the world with some of the biggest artists in the world, producing their in-arena big-screen video shows. It's a life he is well suited for and that he really loves. So get ready for a peek behind the giant showbiz curtain as I chat with my good buddy, Johnny Hayes. And make sure to stay tuned after my chat with Johnny for the 4th installment of a little thing we like to call
Please don't try this at home.
This week's story is presented by my buddy and fellow broadcasting school alumnus, Richard Garner. Richard has always had a knack for finding a way to get to see the big game through the back door. This is one of those stories. So stay tuned for that, but now it's time for my chat with my buddy, Johnny Hayes, the Road Warrior. Hey, Johnny, how you doing, man?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Good. It's been a little while since we've seen each other.
Sometime last year, maybe?
Yeah, last year. I guess you were touring with, who were you touring with? Was it Drake?
I was with Drake last year, but I think when I came to see you last, I was with Adam Sandler, maybe, no? Wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That's right.
Yes.
That was a great show.
Yeah.
So, we go back a way a bit. We met in 1994, first year of television broadcasting program at Algonquin College.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so we were chatting the other day, and you were telling me, I realized that you'd done some work before, but how many years of work did you do for Skyline / Rogers, which was a local public access station in Ottawa?
I think, I started there when I was 16, late 16, through a co-op program at Ridgemont High School. I went to school in the morning and got to go to work in the afternoon. And they offered, would you like to go to Rogers, which I'd never even heard the name before. They had just bought Skyline Television like a week before or something like that. And so I got that opportunity to go there and discovered community television and production and camera operation and et cetera. And turns out that's who I was and fell in love with it, immediately.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the way to do it if you're going to get into broadcasting. Those opportunities are still out there and you get to show up there and kind of do whatever you want often, right? Do camera work.
You whether you want to or not, sometimes you don't want to, but you have to do everything,
right.
Literally, or every position at some time or another, mostly volunteer-based, it was,
So you were working there for a bunch of years, and then what made you shift gears and decide that you were going to go to school?
Well, it was through high school, and then my high school went on strike actually that year, and I did a little hiatus with a little side project I had going on, and by the time school went back in midsummer, I was in a little personal business adventure that was making a lot more money than current high school was. And so I decided to stick with that. And
You were a smuggler?
yeah, so yeah, I used to fly around and that kind of stuff. Anyway,
Move contraband?
sure. Yeah. We were contraband riders.
So you were
And
making pretty good money moving contraband in those days.
tens of $1,000s a week. And it just kind of came off the rails and went bad at one point. And I went back to Ottawa and rolled up and said, Mom, I think I'm going to go to college.
Yeah.
And so I applied for the television broadcasting school at Algonquin.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't graduated high school, but I got in on my merit because I had volunteered so many hours, through the co-op program, then thousands of hours on top of it doing all the productions there. And so I got into college based on that. And that's what sent me into television broadcasting, where I met you at Algonquin.
Yeah. What did you think of that?
I liked it, really. I mean, I had quite like I said, 3-4 solid years of production experience when I got there. So there were some redundant things, but there were a lot of things that I would have never been exposed to, and
Right.
a lot of different opportunities I thought came out of it.
Yeah. Well, you ended up getting a placement out of it, right?
I did. I ended up becoming the associate producer for the Lynx baseball in the last semester through college, but which I was, for the last 4 years, it was my time at Rogers coincided with the timing of the Ottawa Lynx. And yeah, when I got that placement, was the year they won their World Series in AAA,
They were the farm team for the Montreal Expos at the time, right?
Right.
Yeah, I remember that because I worked the corporate boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you worked with my buddy Pablo too. Pablo worked there.
Serving beer and snacks and stuff to the crowds in the corporate boxes. Actually, the thing I remember most about that year was that I was working one night and I walked into the corporate box and nobody was watching the game. And the team was hot, right? They were on their way to championship. And nobody was watching the game in any of the corporate boxes because OJ was driving down the freeway in his Bronco.
100%. I was out at the truck. I was out at the truck, at the broadcast truck beside the stadium, watching it on the truck, the same thing as you were. I know exactly where I was.
What a crazy scenario that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's 1994. So you work for AAA baseball or doing the camera work for them for a few years.
Yeah, camera, and then producing and directing it, and then right at the end of it, we had a guy approach us with a new aerial camera system he had created on a helium-filled aerostat, which is like a blimp,
Right.
a stationary blimp.
Yeah.
And it was a gyro stabilized mount he had made, and he wanted to, implement it in real world scenario. And
Yeah.
local access television, you don't really get that aerial shot too often back then. And anyway, now you can do it with the drone any day of the week. But I jumped at the opportunity. Of course, you can bring your aerial into our show. Let's do it, So he came in and we used it during that run, a couple shows with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we got along, and I saw the opportunity with it and loved it, and ended up getting hired on as the first employee with the company.
Right.
And
you were off.
yeah, we finished up Lynx baseball, and I went right away with them to the Disney Open,
Right.
PGA Golf, the Texas Open, and then a trial for the Olympics in Atlanta, and a figure skating event in Central Park Woolman Rink.
Right. I remember you doing MTV beach parties too. And didn't you do NASCAR?
Anything from the air that we could, make our way in, we tried it. And
yeah, that's a lot of amazing new experiences, like right at the top of your career. And didn't you get a huge shot of Tiger Woods?
In 2001, when he won the 3 Opens in the year,
Right.
At the Canadian Open, he was on 17, hitting around a corner to the green, and the green cameras couldn't see him, and his cameras on the fairway couldn't see the hole. So they had to go to the aerial for it. and it was me shooting it at the time. And he ended up winning the tournament. He won the 3 opens. They had to take the aerial shot for it, and if you go on ESPN or YouTube, anything, type in Tiger Woods 10 best shots, it's his number 1 shot on there. Yeah. So it's.
Were you really kind of nervous on the controls, making sure that you followed it properly and got the whole thing?
Well, I stayed a little wider than I would have normally, for sure. It was foggy and low cloud cover and raining, and so it was dark, and following a golf ball was difficult. I do remember thinking that better make sure I get this one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got that on your resume.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, so how long do you do the they call it tether cam, right? They call it.
Mm-hmm. Telecam Systems. I stayed with them until I guess that was 95 or 94, 95 was kind of when I started with them till 2001. I did that tournament in Toronto, but I was kind of a contractor at that point. I had left the company and started a digital photography company in Florida with my brother.
That was pretty cool, though, too, because you guys were one of the first companies around to come up with the idea that you could digitally shoot all the photos and parents could pick them out right there, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah. We were doing printing, right there on the spot with thermal printers, dye sublimation thermal printers, and so you could put yourself on the cover of a magazine or print out trading cards or all sorts of things with that. And that was a couple years. That would have been like the late 90s, 98, 99-ish. 98, 99 really, because, we were doing that. We had a contract with Kawasaki USA. We were doing all their motorcycle shows around the country.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's where I met the Star Boys.
Right. I remember seeing their DVDs at like the motorcycle shows.
Yeah, well, the very first one, they kind of homemade it themselves.
Right.
And I was working for Kawasaki, and I was just walking around the bike show, and I saw them at the little TV at a little motorcycle shop booth, this crazy stuff happening on video with hardcore music playing. Yeah. And I was like, I've been on a bike since I was 8 years old, and, asked for one since I was born, and music and video and everything of all the sort together, it just probably popped my mind, and
yeah. Well, for the people who are listening who don't know what we're talking about these guys are essentially motocross stunt riders, right?
Street motorcycles was the premise behind it. You know what I mean? Yeah, all wheelies and stoppies and burnouts and
through traffic and stuff often. And
the name of the video series was FTP. And
F the police.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was hardcore as heck. And then all of a sudden these guys came rolling up, and they were all like, it was like Evel Knievel and Motley Crue were the same person. Craziest things you've ever seen in your life. Nobody crazier ever.
After that, they did tours, right? And they do like motorcycle shows and do stunts in front of people and stuff.
Yeah, it spawned an industry, both stunt industry, and a lot of different businesses came about because of it. And, a lot of people have gone on to do a lot of things from it, and it was viral before viral, and it was a big little community, and it was worldwide and fans everywhere. And it really blew up into a lot more than you would expect. And, and so we made crazy videos for 5 or 6 years and sold the DVDs around the world. And the craziest thing I'll tell you right now, I'm in COVID lockdown right now, and I had a conversation yesterday. They broke up like the Beatles, and they weren't talking. And a couple of them have their own churches. One of them is a minister who wheelies for God in prisons. Like, the story is still going. And basically yesterday, they haven't been together in a long time. They haven't talked to each other in 10 years, some of them. Mm. And I had a conversation with all three yesterday and said, have you seen that Tiger King, whatever thing on thing?
I have.
Everybody's locked down and everybody needs content. Guess what? I'm doing a documentary on them.
Yeah,
We
for sure.
decided to do it yesterday, and I'm leaving for Ohio tomorrow.
We got the scoop here. That'd be great.
That is it right here. It just happened. I'm writing the script while I'm sitting here in front of you.
Bam.
Yeah.
Drops
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That'd be fun to watch for sure.
It's exciting, and it hopefully would be good and healing, I guess you might say, for everybody, and just an interesting project. I was supposed to be on tour this year. Right now, I would have never been home, and like I said, being locked down, all sorts of things happen, and this is what just happened.
Cool. Well, I'd want to see that one for sure. And the cool thing is you already own, or you already produced all the archival footage. So
yeah, we're done. We're going to do some interviews, and we're going to get all the fans and all the people inspired and everybody we can to, come and talk. Like, it really crosses genres,
cool. The Star Boys documentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be interesting.
But yeah, when it ended, just the digital came around, and the whole world turned on a dime with the internet and social media and stuff like that kind of sprung out of it. And, we were viral in social media before it began, I guess, almost to a certain degree. And, had the platforms that are around now been then, it would be different. I mean, I suppose they would all be in jail long ago as well. But, maybe a lot more people would have known about it. They would have been the biggest thing on the planet. Like, it just self-destructed kind of in the wrong way at the wrong time at the wrong times every time, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, something like that certainly isn't made to last.
No, it was firecrackers.
Pretty volatile personalities, and there's only so much you can do to your body.
Yeah. It went deep as it can go. It went as hardcore as you could ever imagine. You can't even imagine some of it.
So how do you end up in Akron?
Through them. I met them at a bike show in Cleveland when I was doing that Kawasaki photography, and I met them there. And I met the one guy, Kevin, and I said, hey, yeah. And it was like we were brothers the first second we met. And I said, I live in Daytona. If you're coming down for Bike Week, give me a call. And so, that was in January. And about a month later, right before Bike Week, I get a call. He's like, hey, it's Kevin from Star Boys. He's like, yeah, we're coming down. Mind if we stay there? I'm like, sure. And so literally 15 guys showed up. And half of them ended up staying at my place and just bombed it. And we went out and tore apart Daytona. And we ended up, hitting it off and made a deal that right then to make videos and created a company. And it was the four of us at the time, three of them and me. And that was when we started going ahead with FTP2. The first one was called FTP that I wasn't involved in. And so FTP2 was my first endeavor with them.
So you wrap up the Star Boys thing. Eventually it comes to an end. And then you've bought a place in Akron at that point, right? So you stick around.
Yeah, I was married at the time and had a house. And so then I was just buying and selling stuff like I kind of always do. I kind of sport buy and sell as the way I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And eBay had just come around, and I was buying and selling a lot of stuff. And so then I had a shop, and then I decided to open the shop to the public and sell for people. It was called eBlaze, and then it just got so busy with it became like a pawn shop almost, and I didn't really want to be there anymore. So I sold the whole business. And then I bought a live music bar. The Starboys had it before, and then there was a big long deal, and then it was called Star Bar when they bought it, and then I bought it and renamed it Barfly.
Right.
And
was that kind of a punk bar?
It was just a live music bar. It was really cool. It was full of Akron crazy people.
Yeah.
And so then they set us up. The friggin' local liquor board set us up on a night and sent in an underage person, and she showed fake ID. they raided the place, gave her, the bartenders got charged and we got charged as the owner, or I did. And
Uh-huh.
so it was my buddy who was the bartender. He got charged criminally for it. And it
Wow.
was ridiculous. I'm like, we're just trying to make it and they're trying to put us out of business. So I sold that business pretty quickly also.
Yeah.
And then shortly after I bought a pizza shop. I had really no aspirations for it. Just it was a good deal on a business that I knew if I got it going, I could sell it for more, And so I bought it. And 8 weeks later, my manager was working. He was sick, called me. He said he was sick. Could I take over? And so I went in and ended up getting robbed. And then I shot and killed the guy. And that was it. I mean, in a few words, that was it. It was over.
Yeah, I remember we chatted right after that happened, and I'm like, it was a crazy thing. So how did that starts because you, so you buy the place and somebody comes by and tells you that the place was the police, right? They told you that the place had already been held up a bunch of times. You should probably get yourself a gun, right?
Yeah. Well, I had a gun actually from the bar. I had my concealed carry permit because I used to leave the bar at night.
Mm-hmm.
Money from the cash and everything. And so, yeah, I had it. And then the first police officer I saw pull in the parking lot ever, I ran out, gave him a piece of pizza, and they ended up becoming friends. And they'd come in and they told us, this place had been robbed 4 times in the 2 years before I owned it. And it most likely will be robbed. Just be ready.
Just be ready. Yeah.
Literally, that's what he said.
Akron, it was a pretty tough town, right?
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah. Is it one of the cities that's probably lost a lot of industrial work, right? A lot of plant work and stuff like that. So there's no ton of work, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely part of the rubber belt, and a lot of that manufacturing original, that work is gone for sure long ago. But the people are just like, it's just a different group of people, my friend. They're the most it's hard to even describe. You can't say liberal because they're not liberal, but
right.
They live liberally. Like they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like they just
they're libertarian.
Yeah, for sure. Liberty, man. Liberty. Yeah. I'm going to do what the heck I want.
So that's a group that you'd gotten in with.
Sure. Yeah. When I got to Akron, Ohio, I'm born in Canada, so I'm probably not political. Mm. But when I got to Ohio, I'm like, damn, I think I might be a Republican. And then when I moved to California, I'm like, man, I'm pretty sure I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat for sure, And nowadays, it's like I'm none of the above.
Right.
Both are challenged right now for sure. It's unfortunate to us against them, but.
Let's go back to the evening of the shooting. One of the things that you'd mentioned to me before was that the gunman who came in that evening was wearing a balaclava, or as you call it, a ski mask. And the balaclava had eye holes. And when the gunman moved, the balaclava was moving, so sometimes it was difficult for him to see. And you were mentioning to me that was one of the things that saved you.
Well, yeah, he was trying to pull the mask down, and I heard, some robbery, and I look over and pulling down an orange ski mask, trying to get the eyes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a shotgun, and I was like, that's not real. And he's like, it's a fucking robbery, give me my money. And so I said, okay, and I scooted up to the cash drawer and opened it up. And there's like a half wall beside me that my shoulder leans against, and he's right beside me on the other side of the counter.
Yeah.
And there's $100 bill on the top, and I threw the 100 to the side because I was too cheap. I didn't want to get. That was the first time I opened the drawer. I even had been there all day. I'd only been there 10 minutes, and so I reached in, gave him the 20s. He's like, "Give me the fucking money." And I give him the 20s, and he leans over, I see the rest of that fucking money. Give me the money, and pushes the gun against my head. And so I grab the 10s, give him the 10s, and I have a gun under my shirt on my hip. And he's like, nah, no, not yet. You feel the gun at your temple, and it's a different situation. And So they leaned over, pushed it again, give me the fucking money, And so I grabbed the fives, and as soon as I handed the fives to him, I drew my gun and pop, 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 shot him. He went down. He got back up, pop, 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 shot him again.
Yeah.
And he turned around, dropped all the money, and ran down the street and collapsed.
What's the time period on this? How quickly does this happen?
Oh, I don't know. Shit. 30 seconds maybe, or less than that. I don't know. Like I got there, and as soon as my buddy left that worked there, he was sick. The lady came in and ordered stromboli and fries, and I put her at the end of the counter. She was watching the Cavs game. And then, a minute later, this kid walked in. And so I don't know. I'm not sure how long it took, but definitely under a minute. Yeah, that was it. He ran out. I ran around the front, grabbed all the money he dropped, came back in, and called 911.
And in less than a minute, you got to make life-changing decisions.
Oh, yeah, yeah. At the time in Akron, people were ordering pizza to rob the delivery man of whatever money he had in it.
Right.
It was like a trend. And people were carjacking guys, and then they'd give them the car and they'd still shoot them in the head, like frequently and recently right around there at that time. So again, knowing I was going to be robbed and knowing that it's frequently happening that if you're getting a gun put to your head, you're dying more than not. And I had a gun on my temple. And so when the cold steel hit my skin, that was the time I made the decision. And that was it. You know what I mean? Like it was, I guess I decided then. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember asking you after if you do anything different, if you're like, no, man, that was it. I knew that's what I had to do.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately it is what it is, but I didn't put myself up, he created that situation. I was there. And again, if he had wanted a piece of pizza, he could have asked, or a job or whatever, you got a better chance asking than putting a gun to somebody's head.
Yeah.
Unfortunately at that time.
Yeah. But the way it all went down was you ended up being made a big hero in this situation, right? You were made the NRA Man of the Day or something?
I think, something like that. There was definitely, the NRA community rallied around me because I was a member and, I have my concealed carry permit. I never knew anybody or was even involved in any way beyond buying the membership. And, people really rallied around, from all walks of life, from the mayor to just neighbors around there, and came in, and people came and gave me guns, and I heard the police have your gun, and here you can have this one, and people sending money from all over the country, actually, just in envelopes, like here, get your shop going. And
didn't people start ordering pizzas from all over the place too, right?
Yeah, the local support. We went from like 3 employees to 10 employees overnight, and we were busy for a time right there. And
how much longer do you do it after the shooting? How much longer did you run business before you decided?
Well, again, I bought it to sell it, and it was booming there for not long after, and so I ended up the same manager who called in sick that night that I got robbed. I sold him the whole shop, him and his dad. And so it was I think we started February 1st. I got robbed April 1st. I got robbed March 31st. And I sold it by the end of April, maybe.
Yeah.
So I sold it within 4 weeks, I think, after getting robbed, or maybe 2 months. I don't know exactly what it was, but.
What did you do next? You go back to California?
Well, I think in that summer, I had I don't know what I was doing there, but and that was 2009. And then the fall of 2009, I did come visit some friends out here in California, and I went back to Akron, and my one friend from out here called me and said, how much camera experience do you have? How much handheld experience do you have? I said, a lot. He said, if I put you on a plane, can you fly to Toronto tomorrow? I said, sure, Joe Battle. And I actually said, no, if he said, if I put you on a plane, could you come tomorrow and start this tour with us? And I said, no, I'll get in the truck and drive there tonight. At the time, it was for a tour with an artist named Maxwell. I didn't know at the time, but he was coming back for a tour, and they needed to add a camera operator. So I came in as a handheld camera operator, drove to Toronto, got there for loaded it out. First show was in Toronto. We loaded in Air Canada Centre. We played the show. The engineer quit the day of the show. We got a new guy in who's still one of my best friends, a new guy. Mm-hmm. And we did the show in Toronto. And then the next show was in Detroit. And so I drove my truck beside the bus the next morning to Detroit. I had somebody come from Ohio, pick up my truck and bring it back to Ohio. And I did the tour. And then from there, boom.
You don't seem to apply for anything. You just seem to like you run into people. You have these chance meetings with people who become pivotal in your life, and all of a sudden you're on a new thing.
I guess, yeah. I don't remember the last job application I went for.
No.
When did I last go for a job? Let me check.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that either. But I every once in a while, I hear this great. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
I don't know if I've had a job interview. Have I? I don't even know if I've ever had a job interview, David. I swear, I'm trying to think of it right now. I don't think I've had a job interview.
Yeah, they're overrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had one.
You don't ever go to an HR department and sit down and say, they're like, well, what is it exactly you're looking for? Like, I want to fucking tour with a rock band.
No, I've never been to. I think I've walked past an HR department before, but I've never been in one.
Yeah.
I can barely spell HR.
Nice. So you do Maxwell and then it's just on.
Yeah. Shortly after I did Maxwell, I got an offer to do camera work replacing a guy on Guns N' Roses. And so I went and did quick Canadian, half of the Canadian tour in with Guns N' Roses.
And those are still the legendary days of Axl waiting hours and hours and hours before he goes on stage, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody know what that's all about? Is it stage fright, or do you know, or can you? I mean, he's changed that. He's gotten kind of.
Yeah, well, the promoters wouldn't buy the shows without promise of not having that happen nowadays. But he just out of. I mean, I don't have a better explanation other than that's the way he does it. You know what I mean? Like. I've been with other guys in the last few years that were late too, and they'd show up, they'd be 45 minutes late. They're like, well, their hotel was 30 minutes away. They're like, right. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, well, that means you got to leave at least 35 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Like, it's not hard to do the math.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
So there's many ways to make it happen. It's everybody else seems to make it to work on time,
Yeah. Yeah. And so you go from doing camera work to eventually directing the shows, right?
Well, right after that Guns N' Roses thing, I sent a message to the right guy at the right time. And I said, by the way, because I was getting some compliments, as a matter of fact, of my camera work. And I said, I'm as good a director as I am a camera operator. I sent an email. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, I got a call and said, would you like to be a director for the Keith Urban Summer Tour? It's just a one camera thing mixing with a little content.
Right.
And I pulled over, did a backflip and said, yes, I would love to.
Well, I knew your life had changed because you're not a boasty guy on social media or anything like that. But you're like, I get in touch with you and I'm like, what's going on? It's Christmas. It's like, oh, I'm hanging out with Sully and Jessica Simpson and her husband and some other people. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's life has changed.
Well, that was Sully. He used to work for her and she sang at his wedding and he had a bigger connection with them back then.
Yeah. But your life was changing in a big way at this point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure.
And you were, well, talk to me. It's real, when you come into town, it's cool. You're always super gracious, and you invite me and be out, and we get to go backstage, and we've checked out the touring buses and all that. It's an interesting lifestyle. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. It can be hard, but
You live on a boat.
well, yeah, but no, I don't live on a boat with 20 other guys.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's break this down a few different ways, because I think this is really interesting stuff for our audience. First of all, give me like a sort of a top 10 of the biggest artists that you've gotten a chance to tour with over the past decade. It's pretty interesting list.
Well, I work for Drake right now. That I don't think there's too many with a bigger name than him probably right now. Last fall, Chris Brown, summer Adam Sandler, spring Drake. The previous year was Drake. Do a bunch of did a few Nitro Circus lives and ASCAP awards and a few different things here and there, and I can fit it in and it works out. And Bieber and Maroon 5 and Keith Urban and John Fogerty and
Beyonce, didn't you?
Yeah, I did some shows when she came back in Las Vegas or Atlantic City.
Yeah, I remember asking you about who some of your favorite artists were, and you told me that Beyonce was one of the hardest working people you had seen.
She was. She did 3 full run-throughs in the day time in full heels and such, just crushing it. And she had just had I think it was her first baby, I believe. And she just kept going. She was killing it and get it right and get it right and get it right. And then did the show at night. So she did 4 shows that day.
Yeah, nobody does that.
And not too many, I could tell you. Well, I'm just saying all tours are fun, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways. And you certainly now you're really growing to realize what you're missing. But
absolutely.
Like you said, you're not geared to be on the bus with 12 people and be going city to city. I'm exactly perfectly suited for it, and that's what I love to do.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not geared for it, but it would be difficult to be a married person.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I'd love to do that, but I don't know how long I could do it for. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Show day is, depends on the tour. Lately, as they get bigger and bigger, sometimes they require load-in days even. Sometimes the building's not available. So like somebody else will do a concert the night before and they'll load out and they'll be done at 3 a.m. and we'll be sitting outside with the buses running.
Yeah.
And go in and chalk the floor and start. Sometimes a day could start at 4 a.m. and the riggers are in there and setting all the points and marking for all the motors to hang to lift up all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do that for a couple of hours, even if it's a little smaller show and starts at 7. Same procedure: mark the floor, put all the chain motors up, all the equipment starts rolling in, and all the departments are slinging their stuff, putting truss together, putting staging together, wiring up their video equipments, lighting racks, whatever it might be. And everybody's in their own little world making up their own little world for the day. Mm-hmm. Generally day to day, most times you can replicate what you have to do. My little area is going to look the same for the most part. It's just going to be in a different room or different part of the world or whatever. How often do you actually get a good night's sleep? Well, pretty much every night, really. I mean, depends what you call a good night's sleep, but roadie and when you're a concert worker, you sleep when you can or where you can, whatever works for you, and like we would work, load in 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, load it all in, everything's good, load it in by 2:30 or something like that. Check, let's go back to the bus. Yeah. And you might take a nap for an hour or two, and, get up for dinner, come back in. And a lot of shows, most shows, I'll, cut the openers too. And so I might start working at 7 o'clock and do 2 or 3 acts through the whole night. And so you got a little nap in the afternoon, do a show, come in, have dinner, do the show, load it out, take a shower, back to the bus, and then, hit the hay whenever you want. I generally don't party too much anymore. So, get to sleep. And if you're going to a show day next day, then you're in bed by 2:30 or 3, and you're up by 7, 8, 7, generally, and do it again. Walk out of the bus, walk into the arena, all open. Okay, 23 trucks, dump them all out, load it all in, done. So do it again, and then maybe next day off or something. And so load it out that night, drive to the next city, get to your hotel. Depends. If you're going from New York to Washington, then you're there before, the sun comes up, and maybe you're going from, I don't know, Atlanta to Florida or something like that. And, you don't get there till noon, and it's good because rooms are ready when you get there, and then do what you want, stopping, you guys stopping and dropping, just dropping your stuff. Where are we going? What city are we in? Where's the best food? What are we doing? Are we getting motorcycles? Are we getting bicycles? Are we going go-karting? Are you staying in your room? Are you going to play video games? Are you getting high? What are you doing? What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm not leaving my fucking room. You know what I mean? Like, it's every one of those and all of those things,
Right.
Well, man, I mean, you're not going to go to Big Bend today? You're not going to take the boat down the river to Big Bend again? You're not going back in the city?
Yeah.
No, man, I'm just staying out here. We're at the Intercontinental Hotel at the O2 Arena, and I'm just getting room service today. I don't want to leave. All right, well, I'm going to the city, so see you later.
So what are some of the favorite things you've done on your downtime while on tour?
I mean, Scooter downtown Israel. In Tel Aviv, we had scooters and just like back alley, down the steps, up the steps, Jason Bourne style on scooters, popping out into a cemetery from the 12th century, and then pop around the corner. There's a wedding going on in the middle, and we're all like riding scooters, and it's like a James Bond, Herbie the Love Bug scene, and like, and then it ends up at the Pink Pussycat, the strip club in the north end of Tel Aviv, and so that was a good day. I remember that one for sure. But there's a lot of good ones, like recently we got to San Francisco. I found us electronic assisted bikes. We all dropped our bags, jumped in an Uber, dropped off at the bike store, got on electric bikes, drove down to the waterfront. It was the San Francisco Air Show. And when we got to the waterfront, the Blue Angels were flying.
Oh, yeah.
And the show started. And so we rode the coast all the way up to the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah. And the Blue Angels were flying over us the whole trip. And then we crossed up and drove halfway out on the bridge, and they were still crossing over top of us. And they finished when we were out there on the bridge. It was just like timing is everything, and like an epic day,
Yeah. And you try to play golf too when you tour?
Yeah, some tours you can. Some tours you have a little more time, or if you play like it's a summer tour and you're playing like amphitheaters. There are a lot of amphitheaters in the United States with a golf course right beside it or close by. So there's times when I play on a show day. I wake up and golf course is next door. I'd be able to go and play and come back and go play at 6 a.m, be back at 10:30, 11, and my stuff's just rolling off the truck and loaded in. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally cool. But less and less even right now. I haven't had a good golf tour in a couple of years. Everything's too busy, too big. The shows are too big and take too much time to load in and load out,
Yeah. So we talked earlier about, some of the artists that were cool to work with because you got to go all over the place, and artists that have a certain amount of discipline that you respected. Who were just the most fun people that you've toured with? What are your favorite artists? Who are the guys and girls that just make doing this business, working in this business, all the better?
I think my favorite artist, just all around Keith Urban, who just coincidentally today played a show last night at a drive-in in Nashville for first responders. He's the best there is. You know what I mean? Like, I walk up, see Keith Urban right now. He's like, Johnny, give me a big hug. And he's just a monster musician, the most authentic,
he's
caring person all through and through. So he's great.
And you guys, I remember at one point you guys had done like fun videos and stuff, behind the scene videos and stuff on his tour that looked like, it just looked like everybody really loved the guy and vice versa.
Yeah. It's because he's just great. He's a good person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everybody that works there is great people as well.
Yeah. So who else have you like to work with?
Love Maroon 5 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good friends with a couple of people in the band, and those guys like to play golf on their days off.
Mm-hmm.
Played golf in Morocco at the King's Course there with them, and a few, PGA in Florida, and a couple good places. So
yeah,
they're great. And then, a great tour also can be the people you work with behind the scenes too, not necessarily just the artists, because realistically we see the artists less than we see everybody else you work with, and
sure.
So your day-to-day people, the office people, the bosses, the management, all carry weight in saying who you like and who you don't, I suppose. But
yeah, like a moving city, right? Working on a tour, or the circus. It's such a huge team of people, and from all different walks of life. Like we would have 100 on the tour, like with Drake, and then each day we would pick up anywhere from 120 to 144 locals to help out too. So we'd have 200 plus people helping out the show. Mm-hmm. And who are the crazy fun artists to tour with, the just kind of the wild cards that make it interesting too?
Oh, well,
or can you be like that anymore? I'm
not sure. Like, I don't think there is anybody crazy. I think that I've been with of late. Like last summer I was with Adam Sandler on his comedy tour, the Fresher tour.
Yeah.
And I've never watched Adam Sandler movies, and I wasn't a fan. And the guy in person is great. You know what I mean? Like, you want to go sit with him in the cafeteria, and he's going to crack jokes, and you're going to laugh at like that.
Yeah.
But I've already seen the same character done in 5 movies. Just and it changed my perception of him. I love the guy in person. So.
Yeah,
that was cool. And
well, and there's probably some shit show acts too that you hear stories about, and you're like, I'm going to pass on that one and go with this guy instead.
It's happened before, and I actually took a tour. I won't say which one it was that I heard was a tragedy, and it turned out to be great.
Yeah,
and it was great. Some people are like, I figured out why. They're like, no, we're not getting any information out here. We're not being managed well, and they're not telling us what to do. And when I, after sitting with it for a little bit of time, I was like, you know what? Turns out I don't like being told what to do. And this one's perfect. When the bus leaves, I get on it. And when the bus stops, I get off it. And I already know what day there's a show, so I'll be there. And that's all you need to tell me.
Yeah.
And we had the best time ever. You know what I mean? Nobody told me what to do anytime. So it was great.
Yeah. What do you see yourself doing in 10 years from now? What do you see yourself?
I don't know.
Do you think you'll still be touring?
Dave, I don't know. I love it enough to say it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
And I think we'll have to just see how everything shakes out of this.
Mm-hmm. Is it a young man's game? Could you tour at 60?
I do know people at that age, sure, that are, and, a lot of management people, it still occurs, and I think it's probably a product of, there's some people where it's just like, it's over and I got to do something, but there's a lot of people, and especially if you got to a certain level, like to pivot to an absolutely new career at 50, 55 years old and expect to maybe make the same amount of money might be difficult,
Right. Well, it's even tough to say what what the entertainment business or the live music business is going to be like in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I mean, we really don't know, right?
Well, fuck. If they don't, I mean, it's tough to believe anything right now. Yeah, if the vaccine comes around and everybody can get vaccinated for it, there's no reason things can't bounce back to, obviously there's a lot of decimation in the world with the economy and different types of businesses, but concerting per se, people are going to be dying to go to a concert and will do whatever they need to do it. So
yeah,
I hope that it just bounces back as simple as that, really,
Belinda and I, we love going out to see live music. We just, especially, there's nothing better in the summer. Like you've worked all the facilities in Toronto and stuff, but there's nothing better than going out to a show in the summer at it's now called the Bud Stage, the amphitheater right there. Look out, you can see the C&E going on, beautiful weather, sitting outside on a blanket or whatever at an amphitheater, watching your favorite bands. There's just nothing better than that.
Yeah, I have the same overall sentiment with it, except I'm sitting in a different place at that building.
Yeah.
I'm looking out at you as you're looking up at me. Mm-hmm. And enjoying it in the same way. Like, yeah, hell yeah, I love being there with all the people and, fireworks show and good, hey buddy, good concert, and catering and miss catering so bad right now.
Well, look, when everything works right, it's magic. I mean, it's just that's all it is. It just doesn't get much better than that. So hopefully we'll get back on track and we'll be able to. You'll be able to get back on tour and work with some of your favorite artists, and we'll be able to show up in amphitheaters and at Massey Hall and at the Scotiabank Arena and be able to check out all our favorite bands again. Hopefully that happens pretty soon. I want to thank you for being on the show. Thank you very much for spending this time telling me about some of your stories. You've definitely lived an interesting life, my friend. I don't think that's going to change any time because you're really a guy who's always looking for the next adventure. So take care of yourself during this downtime and keep yourself busy and keep your mind busy because it can be difficult. But hang in there, brother, and thank you for being on my podcast. I really, really appreciate it. You've always been such a great friend to me.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Dave. Be safe and say hi to your wife, and you all be safe down there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, man. You've always been really good to me. And I always really appreciated that when you come to town and stuff and inviting me out. And I always have so much fun meeting up with you and going out for drinks after. It's always been a real pleasure. So thanks for that. Much love to you, my friend, and just be safe.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you.
All right. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Hayes. Love that guy. Years ago, while backstage watching a show that Johnny was directing in Toronto, I commented to a shared friend of ours that Johnny was certainly living his life to the fullest. To which my friend Sean commented, without missing a beat, "Johnny is the coolest guy I know." I tend to agree with that comment. Moving on. This is a short story told by my good friend Richard Garner. Time for another installment of
Please don't try this at home.
Hi, my name is Richard Garner, and this is my story. At some point in the 80s in Ottawa, a bunch of friends and I were on our way to a Ottawa Rough Riders game, and they were actually announcing a new mascot. Wild Thing was the name of this mascot. We didn't know this and probably didn't care much. We had, had a few pre-drinks and showed up at about halftime. In those days, we didn't actually pay to get into the games. We knew a way to sneak into the games through the Civic Center, the adjoining arena beside Lansdowne Park. That took us through an underground area that sort of snaked through a bunch of tunnels and then came up at field level. And in this area, there was the former visitors' dressing room, which was no longer in use because both dressing rooms, home and visitors, had been moved to the other side in a recent reno. So we said, I wonder what's in that dressing room these days. And of course, curiosity got the best of us. We decided to check it out. Lo and behold, hanging in that dressing room on that day was somewhere around 10 different mascot outfits. Started to become clear to us that this mascot launch of Wild Thing was in fact also some sort of mascot party at halftime. So it didn't take long for us to essentially look at each other and figure out who was going to be the person that was going to throw one of these on and go out. I drew the short straw. Cut to, within minutes, I'm in the OC Transpo owl costume, making my way to field level. Get up there around the time that they are about to announce Wild Thing, and sure enough, song comes on. What are you going to do when you're dressed as a mascot? And that song comes on, you're going to dance. And that's what I did. Of course, by this time, a bunch of our friends in the stands knew what was going on. Everybody had a good laugh. God. Except the security guard who, out of breath, ran over to me and asked me what I was doing because he was with the person who was supposed to be in that outfit. I responded by saying, I don't know, I got a call late that I had to show up, somebody was sick, etc. This guy says, wait here, I'll be back. Of course, I didn't wait there. I took the mascot outfit off and ended up watching the second half from the stands with a couple of beers and a great story. This is Richard Garner, and that's my story.
Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Richard Garner. When Richard says he and his buddies were good at finding creative ways to see a ball game, he wasn't kidding. In 1993, when Joe Carter hit the series-winning home run that allowed the Toronto Blue Jays to claim their second World Series title, a few young guys I know jumped the outfield wall to start the party early. One of those guys was immortalized in baseball history as he followed Joe Carter live on TV as he rounded the bases for home. That young man was Richard Garner. Thanks again also to Mr. Jerry Stamp, who wrote and performed the Cool Story theme song and all other jingles and stings that appear on this show. Do yourselves a favor and look for Jerry's music wherever you stream. And finally, thank you for listening. Until we meet again.
Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?